Well, hello, everyone. All of you joining us on the webinar, thank you so much. All of you joining us on Facebook Live, welcome as well. All of you joining us through Televisão-Portuguesa de Califórnia and our very good friend, João Manuel Dias, welcome to another panel of the Luso-American Education Foundation Conference, put together this year, very different, virtually, through the Portuguese Beyond Borders Institute at California State University, Fresno. And we are so excited to have this wonderful panel. As you can see, it is, as our good friend Lino Amaral said right before we got on with us, kind of like the Hollywood squares. And this is indeed the Portuguese squares of the Portuguese of who's who in the Portuguese American community, from the Bay Area all the way to the beautiful city of San Diego, and all the other beautiful cities in between. Well, to Larry, Mark, and I like it, but it's it's plain. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll have a little bit of an introduction in a bit. I want to thank our sponsors, I should say, the Luso-American Development Foundation, Fundação Luso-Americana para o Desenvolvimento, FLAD in Lisbon, also the Luso Financial, and as well as the Governo dos Açores, the government of the autonomous region of the Azores, and of course, our good friend João Manuel Dias with the Televisão-Portuguesa de Califórnia. Thanks to all of their efforts for allowing us to put forth this conference. We started on Saturday, Portuguese as a global language, with the panelists from California, Brazil, and Portugal. Yesterday we had statewide organizations, and today we're going to go a little bit more local to the Portuguese halls. Portuguese halls are iconographic in the Portuguese American community. They're the biggest patrimony that we have. We have nearly 100, actually. There is a young lady from the Sacramento area, Carol Gregory, who I believe is on listening, who's done an excellent job. It was her thesis of her PhD in geography when she mapped out all of the Portuguese halls in California. And although the thesis is about 15 years old, we're actually working with her to get it updated and to get it published, because I think it's important to have this. Who knows how many halls will be here 100 years from now. And so we decided this year's Luso-American Education Foundation Conference to kind of talk about who we are and what's going on with us in the community with the pandemic and how we go forward. And so I'm going to ask our president of the Luso-American Education Foundation, Bernice Pelikas, to welcome each and every one of you on behalf of the board.
Thank you, Denise. I don't want to repeat anything you said, but I just want to welcome everybody to the third day of the conference. And to mention that this virtual conference was the vision of Denise Borges, who challenged the board of directors to hold this innovative conference this year, even though we had to cancel all our other activities for the year because of the COVID-19. And I would also like to thank the guest speakers and moderators from Saturday and Sunday. They did a fabulous job. I believe this conference program provides us with a diverse perspective into the various issues facing the Portuguese community. And by sharing our experiences as a Portuguese community, we can achieve our common goals of promoting our culture and language. I hope everyone will enjoy tonight's program, which promises to be very interesting with presentations from the various Portuguese halls. And then again, I welcome your comments and feedback on this conference for all those that are participating in it. So thank you, Denise, for having me.
Thank you, Madam President, and we will begin. Once again, thank you all for being part of this panel. I'm going to start with a very basic question, which is asking each and every one of you to introduce yourselves and the organization that you represent and a little bit about the organization. We're glad to have, such wide representation. So if you can keep the comments to around 3 to 5 minutes, more or less, so everybody can talk a little bit about, the halls and the history of the hall cannot be done in 3 minutes. So I'm cognizant of that. Most of the halls are centennial. And so, but if you can give us a little bit of a snapshot, first of all, of who you are and the organization that you're representing, with a little bit of a snapshot about your organization, and then we'll go from there. And we're going to start with San Pablo. Elaine.
Okay, yes, my name is Elaine Almeida. I am with the San Pablo Holy Ghost Association, and we were organized in 1881. There's question whether we are the oldest or not, but if we are not the oldest, we're the second oldest. And our situation is a little bit different because the old, here in San Pablo, the old Festa Hall was called Maple Hall because of its maple floors. And when the city was going to move, they were in an old school, they were in that land. And so the San Pablo Holy Ghost at that time was not really active. They hadn't done a festa since the late 50s. But the directors that were there made an agreement with the city that the city would build a hall, a meeting hall for San Pablo, and have rights to use the community center, which is also called Maple Hall Community Center, numerous days during the year. We just recently moved with the city again to a new location where we have our meeting hall and continue with our rights to use, and it's still called Maple Hall Community Center. We probably do the same types of events that everyone else does. The festa, you have dinners, we just did a bifana, drive-through, and our relationships a little bit, we are a small compared to many, but we have a good partnership with the SDS of Alvarado, who allow us to use their kitchen so that we can continue with the tradition of Supush. And we've worked together on quite a few different events.
Fantastic. And so from there, from the San Pablo area, thank you, Elaine, we'll go to hometown here, Tulare, and all the way travel a little bit, and Mark Nunes.
Hello, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. My name is Mark Nunes. I am from Tulare. I am the current president of the board of directors. I was the FESTA president back in 2018. We have directors that run 3-year terms, so I'm on my second term. I'm going into my 5th year as a director and my 3rd year as a president. Our hall was incorporated back in 1919. Our main thing, of course, Tulare Divino Espírito Santo, TDS, is the Holy Spirit. That is the main thing that we do. It's always usually 9 weeks after Easter. But we also hold the Nossa Senhora de Fatima, which is another subcommittee that puts that together. And we also hold the Festa, the band. Tulare also has a band, but they have their own hall, but not big enough to hold their own celebration. So they also use our facility, which is in the same block, same area that we're at. So that's pretty much what TDS is. We also rent throughout the year, which of course everybody knows has been challenging for halls now, but we are a rental hall. A lot of the Portuguese weddings are at our hall in Quinceañeras and so forth. So that's pretty much a little bit of TDS.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mark. And Judy from Sacramento, please.
Hi, I'm Judy Diaz-Allen. I am second generation and currently the chairperson of our board of the Sacramento Portuguese Holy Spirit Society. We go by SPHSS. SPHSS was the result of a merger in 1966 of the AADES, which was founded in 1897, and ODES, founded in 1907. I'm proud to say that my father, Frank Diaz, was an integral part of this merger and the first president of the SPHSS. Our main yearly event, of course, is our Holy Ghost Festa. It's held on Pentecost Sunday. Mass is held next door in our Church of Santa Maria, built in 1912, and it's considered historical. We also, like many of you, we have crab feeds, so we have steak and oyster dinners, we celebrate Carnival, Christmas, and New Year's. We annually hold a traditional matanza And we too rent out our hall for the public and member events. So that's kind of a nutshell of the SPHSS.
I have to ask the question, Mrs. Allen. Dias, Frank Dias, the famous radio man?
Yes, sir. Don't
My
make me
gosh.
cry.
My gosh.
You know that, huh?
I know him very well. I knew him
No,
very
I know
well.
you knew him, but I didn't.
Yeah.
You didn't put the two together.
I did not put the two together, but you do have his resemblance, and you're a daughter of a true Portuguese icon in the Portuguese community throughout California. Indeed,
Okay.
a very, very, very dear friend to my heart. So welcome, and from Sacramento, we'll go all the way down to San Diego. Ricardo.
Let me unmute.
Okay, that's yeah, that's one of those things.
My name is Ricardo DeRosa. I'm the president of the UPSES Portuguese Hall here in San Diego. My first year, and it's been a challenging one, as you guys can all imagine. Been on the board before. This is my fourth year on the board, a second time. Had a little hiatus in between, but it's been challenging to say the least. Our big event is Festa Espírito Santo for Queen St. Isabel. Of course, that came right as this was starting. In May, we were scheduled, so of course that didn't happen. But what we did do is, you know, the theme of that is to feed the people. And so we did over 600 pounds of meat and I think 600 tins of sopas that we did, 200 that were delivered, and the other 300 and change, 400, were picked up in a drive-through fashion at our hall. And let me tell you, that was a challenge in about 3 hours to do that many without people getting out of the cars and talking, as Portuguese like to do. So it was a challenge, but we got that done. We're going into next year will be our 111th Festa. So that puts our first Festa about 1909. We haven't missed one until this year. And we say we did one, we just didn't have a parade. We do the weekly crownings, of course. We do crab feasts. We do rentals like many of you do. And we also do bingo, which was another big moneymaker for us, which of course is also non-existent now. So we've done some creative things this year, which I'm guessing we're going to get into later. But that's kind of where we're at. We're a big hall, and we tend to do a lot of events, a lot of rentals. But this year, the parking lot has been very well used. I'll put it that way.
Indeed. So from Ricardo, thank you so much, Ricardo. And we'll just go up the street there from San Diego to Artesia. Paul Barcelos.
Hello, my name is Paul Barcelos. I'm the president of Artesia DES for 2020. We serve one-year terms generally. We decided as a group that we would put on our names for nomination for an additional year just to kind of manage through the pandemic. It just makes it a little bit easier. And I think to kind of add continuity because there's some challenges there. Obviously, there's a lot of costs. So what we are generally do, it's like Mark said, we're the Artesia DES. Our main festa is the Artesia DES. The difference is, I think, is, and there's been some changes in the recent years, the board of directors generally runs the majority of the festas. We are still in charge of putting on and organizing the festa of the Espírito Santo, but we also have various other festas. The one that attracts the most people actually being the Festa da Bola, even though the Festa Espírito Santo is more important. Festa da Bola, which is our annual soccer tournament, and festa around that actually attracts the most people. We host Carnaval here every year. We have a matanza every year. We have we also open our hall. It's basically where the community lives. We have a Festa de Fatima, which is a completely different committee, but they use our hall to throw their Festa de Fatima, and they've been doing that for years, for well over 50 years, frankly. And then we also have groups like our folklore group is a separate group, but they use our facility to practice. Our Luso group, when they do their events once a year, they use our facility to practice. And we're kind of the center of the community. We also house both our band, which are part of our organization, and our soccer clubs, which are also part of our organization. All that falls under the same umbrella. As I mentioned, we have different subcommittees that we have to organize those additional festas. We have rentals on a regular basis. We obviously don't have those to the degree this year that we've had in the past. Not even close, but we've managed. So we've done, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, some of the things that we've done to manage through the pandemic.
Thank you, Paul. And from Artesia, let's go to Newark, Duarte Teixeira.
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, thank you for inviting me to be on this panel. It is an honor to be here today representing, and I'm going to say, Council 16 of PFSA. Excuse me, but my voice is. But if I say Newark Pavilion, I'm pretty much everybody knows who I'm talking about. And let me give you a little bit of the history of the Newark Pavilion, because behind the name of the Newark Pavilion is the organization. And for 89 years, we used to belong to the SES. We used to be consulate of the SES. And so 10 years ago, we got into the merger with the other 4 organizations, and we come to be Council 16 of PFSA. And when I'm saying all this, it reminds me I was the last Supreme President of the SES. And also was honored to be the 2nd Supreme President of the PFSA. So I've been around for a while. We run probably different from other halls because we have the council oversees everything, and we have 2 committees. We have the committee for the festa. They do events during the year. So when it comes the weekend of the festa, they can provide for everybody the sopas and all that's going on the weekend. And then we have another committee, it's called the business board. Their job is to maintain the hall, take care of the rent, because, you know, like this year we're celebrating 99 years. So, you know, these halls get old and they need to be maintained. And that's a job those 5 members of the board have to do. Otherwise, we probably gonna come back, and the Newark Pavilion is well known. It's one of the biggest halls in the state of California. And I'm pretty sure we're gonna come back and talk about how things been this year. So for now, and the only thing I wanna say, I wanna dar beijinho a minha Supreme President. I don't see her for a long time, Monique.
But we hear Monique all the time. She's on it.
Yes.
She's everywhere. Thank you, Duarte.
She's good, she's good.
Yeah, she's awesome. And from Duarte Teixeira from Newark, we'll go to Ferndale, and I believe Stephanie, right?
Right. My name is Stephanie Koch, and I am president of the Portuguese Hall Association of Eel River Valley. The valley incorporates the town of Ferndale, Alton, Fortuna, Scotia, and Riedel. That's originally in 1926 when they first incorporated. The first festa in Humboldt or in Ferndale was in 1924, June 7th and 8th. And 2 years later is when they purchased the current hall that we are now in. They had it in the Masonic Lodge prior to that, a couple of years before 24. But since 1924, we've consistently until this year had a festa. Our hall is, we don't rent it. We only use it for Portuguese events. And we do the festa. We do Fatima celebration in October. We do a fundraiser. The board does the fundraiser in December that ties to one of the community events that we do, our annual Christmas tree lighting. And so it's like a community event. And we do a beans and linguiça feast at that time. I was trying to think of what else we kind of do. The Catholic Church uses our hall for their annual bazaar. And that's an old-fashioned bazaar with wheels and kind of gambling a little. I wanted to also add that I am a member of the PFSA. I'm a line officer in PFSA, and I'm proud to be a part of that organization. And thank you so much for thinking of me. I bet it was Monique that sent you my way. Was it?
It was, well, I can give her credit. I don't mind giving Monique the credits. We wanted to have representation from all the different areas, and
You know,
sometimes
I'm just thrilled about that. In fact, last night we had we have an annual board meeting, and our meeting was last night. And so we have, I was able to share the information that you had sent to me yesterday about this evening, and we have some of our people are watching. So that, I think that's great. Thank you.
fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for participating. Thank you, Stephanie. How about Santa Clara? Senhor João Arruda. João.
I am João Arruda. Originally, I'm from my village of Maia, San Miguel, and a resident of Santa Clara, California since 1972. I've been involved with the Portuguese community since I put my foot in Santa Clara. We didn't have the Portuguese Mass, since then we have a Portuguese Mass and a priest that serves the Portuguese community in Portuguese. But I was since 1983 to 1996, the year of our centennial, I was part of the board of directors of SES. And originally SES was, our hall was purchased circa 1895. But prior to 1895, the Santa Clara community of Portuguese working on agriculture and orchards and canneries and all that, they are already celebrating the Holy Spirit, but because they don't have the symbols of the Holy Spirit, they went to borrow the symbols from the community of Half Moon Bay. They would go on a mule to bring the crown and the flag to Santa Clara, celebrate the feast, and go back on the mule to give back to the community of Half Moon Bay. So our articles in Sacramento was in 1896, so we are legal for 124 years. And Portuguese community in Santa Clara, they do 4 main feasts with parades, which are the SES is the main feast, of course, but then we do Saint Anthony and Our Lady of Fatima and Sociedade Filarmónica Portuguesa de Santa Clara. They all go to the St. Clair's Parish, which is the one multicultural parish that serves also masses in Portuguese till today. And the Hall of St. Clair, through the years, has been the Portuguese headquarters in Santa Clara. For besides the Holy Spirit, they also give room for the Irmandad, the Nossa Senhora de Fatima, founded in 1957, Brotherhood of St. Anthony, 1902, Rainha Santa Isabel, early 1900s too, but that's Irmandad, it's gone already. The Philharmonic Union of Santa Clara since 1974. The main things that are revenues for the hall or the Portuguese headquarters is renting the hall, including almost a permanent renting for another religion celebration on weekends. But quinceañeras and feasts like baptisms and weddings, stuff like that. That's where they got the revenues, including the, quotas, memberships and stuff. And of course, the raising funds, Noite Fortes, Matanza, and the regular events that they do that involves food, dances, that's how we live. And they also assist the group of Santa Clara Portuguese Political Forum. So every time that we have local elections, they offer the hall, and the group that the members of the Santa Clara Portuguese Political Forum organize, but is actually the Portuguese organizations that contribute for the event, for the expenses. So, and those organizations exist, but there is not one organization that controls. SES is the owner. He gives the rules for the other organizations to be there, like Saint Anthony, Lady of Fatima, and Philharmonic, and even lately Maritime Sport Club. But they rule, they rule the conditions where they stay there. But each one has their own board, their own memberships, and they run by themselves. And since we are diminishing people die for so long, I've been here, so many people die, and we are diminishing. Mm-hmm. And what happened is one organization does the celebration, the others, they give a hand, especially on those manual things that like cooking and cleaning and all that. So that's the way we operate in Santa Clara with SES Hall that was purchased around 1895, but is so different. It's been through these 124 years, it's been so many modifications, including the cave or I don't know what the name of it. It's they dig down and they made a basement, mm-hmm. A basement, and it holds around 500 people sitting to eat. So, okay. And the promotions is caranguejos, matanza, crab feedings, matanza, Noite Fortes,
Okay. Well, thank you so much, João. And from Santa Clara, we're going to Selma. Tisha.
Hello. First, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be part of your panel and commend you on the great job that the conference has had over the last 2 days as well. I'm Tisha Cardoza. I'm the past president. I was president for 4 years of the Salma Portuguese Azorean Association. Second female president, following my grandma, who was president in 1998. So it took a while for the second one to come around. We are a small hall. We started in 1907 as an IDS hall, and then unfortunately there was a fire, and when the hall burned, it reopened as the Salma Portuguese Azorean Association around 1981, and that's the building and the hall that we have today. They decided to form their own organization outside of IDS. But IDS did help them with the loan that got them started. I remember when they paid that off, it was quite exciting. We have our annual Festa, Trinity Sunday. We, for the most part, are a very small Portuguese community. So we do tend to cater to our Salma community, and we do rent out to you know, lots of quinceañeras, birthday parties, etc. That's where most of our revenue comes from, all to help put on the annual festa. We don't have a lot of fundraisers throughout the year. We only do a spaghetti dinner. And then last year we started a scholarship dinner in memory of my uncle who had passed away, Louis Cardoza. And then for the rest part, we just rely on the rentals and donations from the generous people of our community and outside of our community actually as well.
Thank you, Tisha. And from Selma to up north, back to the Bay Area, there's Mr. Lino Amaral, known from no introduction needed. But he'll introduce himself, obviously. Union City, Colorado.
Thanks, Denise, for the invite and being part of this panel. I think it's obviously very important. In addition to being involved in the halls, also a director for the Education Foundation. So thank all of you being participants in this. As you probably can't tell, I'm a State Farm agent, former CEO of Luso. I am not a former president or a former director of SDS Alvarado, but as Elaine pointed out, we have a very good symbiotic relationship with San Pablo. I happen to be a director for San Pablo. My family's been involved in Alvarado since I was little, believe it or not. I was little at one point. And now I have a new compadre because the president is my new compadre. My son got married this past weekend to his daughter. So hence the relationship there. The hall was Sociedad Vin Espírito Santo in Alvarado, was founded in 1926. So coming up on 94 years. I was thinking about this. Amazingly, I mean, a lot of these halls are old, but it's been, you know, half of my lifetime I've spent running in and out of those halls. I know that that like many other halls, we speak about the festa. That's the cornerstone. The board of directors runs the festa there. The president has its input on how it works, but ultimately the decisions are made as a group. And obviously, like many others, SDS Alvarado's had issues with revenue. We're social organizations. We are built on, you know, the fraternal bond that all of these halls and all these Portuguese organizations had. And during a pandemic, we just can't have it. So in addition to the Festa de Espírito Santo, we have a huge crab feed. We also have a number of other fundraisers, obviously. They have weekly bingos, which are now gone. Rent the hall with a lot of functions, whether it's quinceañeras, whether it's weddings for various denominations. All those are gone. So the hall used to be like in many Portuguese organizations. I know that there are a number here. There I go, talking like Mark. I got my hands going. Used to be surrounded by a lot of Portuguese. And, you know, the neighbors across the street used to be Portuguese. Around the corner when we used to do the parades, you know, the Portuguese flags were all out and things have changed. And so I think one of the keys that we're probably going to talk about here is the ability to adapt, because over the last 6 months, we've had to adapt quite a bit. So with that, I will render my time. Thank you.
You'll yield the floor to the...
I'll yield to the chair.
Okay, so you'll yield the floor to Monique, who is here as the president of PFSA and represented PFSA yesterday, but she's representing in the Modesto Portuguese Hall.
Yeah, that's what I love about being Portuguese. It's a small world. I come over here expecting to wear my festa hat, and then I see all my fraternal friends and family. So, of course, Beijing Duarte, and Stephanie did not mention that she is actually the Supreme Master of Ceremonies. She's going to be president in 2 years. And of course, I know all my friends at Luso. Today I'm representing the Modesto Portuguese Pentecost Association. I'm a board member. Not president yet. I've been secretary, treasurer. I was a queen. My daughter's been queen. So I've been around this festa for many years. It's very close to my heart. We were established in 1916. And when we had our centennial banquet, I did some research on the history of the hall. And apparently our first president, Antoninos, his wife was pregnant and went into labor at the festa. So it was a very exciting start to the MPPA. we've been around for many years. 1927, we built our hall. It's known as the California Ballroom in downtown Modesto, and we've been there ever since. We've expanded on the hall ever since, and it's we've done some recent remodeling, and of course we had saved to do more remodeling, but luckily that savings went to pay our expenses instead, which luckily we had. My mother was actually the first female president and only female president of MPPA in 2003. So Selma, I think, is a little ahead of us in progress. And, we have the same events as everyone else. We, have our crab feeds and batasas and all those different things. Of course, being in a bigger city, we're a little bit more of a challenge than like Hilmar or Turlock, because our Portuguese community here is more second and third generation rather than first generation. But I think we do pretty well for ourselves. We usually draw a pretty decent crowd. And of course, as Lino said, things aren't the way they used to be. But I'm pretty proud that our committee and our board is a lot of younger people. And not that, you need only young people for things to be good, but we have a healthy committee and line of presidents going, so we're doing okay, and I'm really thankful for that. And I guess that's it.
Okay, thank you, Monique. So we'll head on to the next question, and again we'll ask everyone, and some of these are going to be repeats, but that's fine. So the pandemic hit. All of you kind of touched on that a little bit, obviously. Things changed drastically in the last 6 months in the life of the Portuguese American community, and certainly in the halls. And so my question is, I know that all of the halls here and throughout California, all festivals were canceled. So my question was in the aspect, once the pandemic hit, and how have you been able to cope with the pandemic? And what have you done, and what has your association done to kind of keep it going? Because, in Portuguese, quem não aparece fica esquecido, as we say, so if you're not present, you may get forgotten. Not that people will forget the Holy Ghost, but they may forget the hall or the event, or, things have to always be, and especially in today's world, in people's faces, it seems like, in the good sense of the word. So my question is, once the pandemic hit, what has been the life of your hall for the last 6 months? And it looks like for at least another couple of months, 2 or 3 months. So what has the life of your hall? How has it affected your revenue? How without giving us the secrets of the hall, but how has it affected your revenue? And what creative projects were you able to do to keep the hall relevant in these pandemic times within the Portuguese community of your particular city? And I think we're going to start this time all the way down there in San Diego, because Ricardo kind of gave a little bit of some of the things that they did with their festa. You might want to mention that also, how if you just cancel the festa, which some halls did, or did you opt for something a little bit different, a festa without the parade, as Ricardo said, was some of the other things that were done that are essence of the Holy Ghost, which is, of course, the sopas and the prayer. So we'll start with Ricardo.
Hey, thank you very much. Well, one thing we did, I mentioned before, we did the drive-through sopas, which was a logistic challenge, to say the least, because of course, like most cities, there's no permits either. And we had a little bit of traffic with that many people coming through in 3 hours, but we made it work, which was good. But really, I got to take my hat off to the board that I work with. Our hall, we have a little Portuguese market. We work closely with the Artesia market, so we get some product from them as well. But they've really stepped up, and we started doing monthly pre-orders for Portuguese food. We did, let's see, we've done canspit, we've done, of course, now I'm trying to make linguiça hot dogs. We did linguiça corn dogs, which was a challenge, but that actually was very successful. So we've done different things, and they've really stepped it up. And what they do is people pre-order online through the market or through an online marketing program that we just started this year as well. It's an online program that is designed just for nonprofits. So if anybody's interested, I can put you in contact with them, but they've helped us out quite a bit. So we've been doing monthly pre-order foods, and that drives people into the market too, because the market stay open, it's a market. And luckily they've been actually paying all our bills. The market has paid our property tax and everything. So they've really stepped it up. And what they do as well is they do weekly specials. So they'll do a bacalhau dish. They'll do octopus salad. They do all kinds of different things, and they just make them and have them in the market, and they have them until they sell them all. So the market has really stepped up for us. That has been our saving grace, was the market and thinking outside, because it's the one thing that can stay open. We can't rent, we can't have any events, even our clubs can't have events, but we do have a good parking lot. And so we've used that, and that's what we really maximized. So between the online marketing and the market, we've managed to do all right. But again, I got to take my hats off to my board and to the market staff and team, because they really stepped it up for us.
Before we go to someone else, Ricardo, so the market is operated by your organization, by the hall?
Yes, it's inside the hall, and
it's a Portuguese products,
umbrella.
a Portuguese products market.
Yes, it's called the Portuguese Store. Very original name, but it's easy to know what we sell.
That's right. Indeed. Very ingenious. That's a great way to bring Portuguese products to an area that sometimes don't have Portuguese products. So from San Diego, we will go to Selma. We'll come all the way up here, and Tisha, tell us a little bit how the pandemic affected the hall.
So we canceled our festa. We had no event whatsoever that weekend, mostly due to the funds or lack thereof. We were not able to have any of our fundraisers that we would have. All of them have been canceled. We do have one coming up in October, thanks to the generosity of Maria Fernanda Simoens that you're familiar with. She is donating sweetbread for us to sell to raise funds for the hall. In order to stay afloat, we had to take out a loan, like maybe some halls did throughout the state. So now we have a debt to pay off and work on paying off next year. And then for the most part, other than that, though, it's just been trying to just keep the facilities up. We, unfortunately, on top of all of the Corona type issues where we can't have rentals and we're not having any income come in, we had a fire sprinkler bust. And so we have to, currently the hall is getting a remodel. It'll look very nice when it's reopened. But we're going to be, the floors were ruined as well as the walls and the ceiling. We've been fortunate to host 2 Dia de Portugals for the Luso Education Foundation. And so if you've ever been in the hall, we have the drop ceiling and it dropped to the floor. So it was quite devastating. We're lucky, it wasn't worse than it was. And we're lucky that we had great insurance and it's all going to be covered for us. So we're looking to rebuild and definitely brainstorming more now. We might be a little more late than most halls were. We didn't jump on some of the great ideas that we've seen on Facebook through other halls. So we hope to incorporate some of those for the rest of the year, as well as next year going in to get ourselves back on track.
Indeed. And so thank you, Tisha. And we'll go back down south to the city of Artesia. Paul.
So a lot of our issues are the same, right? We've been renting the hall. We can't rent the hall. We were renting the hall at a really prolific rate before. Luckily, we did have a lot of income before this all ended. We had a very successful Carnaval. We had a lot of rentals. So we actually had built up a good nest egg. At the beginning when everybody thought this was only going to be a couple months, we actually kept our employee who works we have an employee who works on the facility on a daily basis. We actually kept him, and we did a lot of deferred maintenance on our halls that kind of needed to happen. One of our halls is really new and it's only 10 years old, but there's still maintenance that needs to occur. So we did that, and then when it looked like this is going to be a very long-term event, we had to think differently. So we had to let him not let him go, but we basically laid him off. The good news is he's so handy and he has such good rapport with the Portuguese community. He's had plenty of work to keep him. He's very handy, so he's been doing work on plenty of Portuguese people's homes throughout. And in talking to him, I stay very much in touch with him. He's been able to stay employed and basically make money to pay his rent. So we've been lucky there from the perspective is that we've been able to catch up on some deferred maintenance. So it actually offsets some future costs for us. But now, we've basically had to shut everything down. We've reduced our expenses significantly. And although there still are some, I don't know if you guys are aware, but a few years back, we purchased a home next to our property. That home has renters in it now. The rentals on that home actually help pay for the interest on the debt that we had incurred when we built the hall and when we purchased the house. So we've been able to kind of take care of that that way. And then we've raised money with parking lot events like everybody else has had. We did one, we called it the Taste of the Festa de Bola, which was the food that you normally purchase, the popular food at the Festa de Bola. We had a pre-order, people pre-ordered online. We had a very robust, we've done these a lot of times, but we have a very robust marketing campaign on social media. People call in their orders, they prepay, a lot of them prepay, a lot of them don't, but they've been wildly successful. I think that the one that's been the least, they've generally made north of $4,000 to $5,000 in profit. So those have helped significantly. We actually had one that was people in our community that put it together, raised money, and did it on their own. And they incurred all expenses. It was their donation. They did those. That one was really, really beneficial because there were no costs associated with it. So we've done those. That's helped us basically live from month to month. We had one thing that was really, really successful is we ended up having our Festa Espírito Santo, which usually occurs in the fourth weekend of July. We decided we don't want it to die. We don't want to have 1 year without a Festa Espírito Santo. So we did a virtual Festa Espírito Santo where we had most of the elements of the Festa just done virtually. So we had our normal raising of the flags. We had our rosaries during the week. We had on the Saturday we usually have an event. We usually have a lot of most of the weekend, but on that Saturday we usually have dancing and musical performances and all that stuff. We did that online. We even had George Fejeda was actually performed for us on that event. And then on Sunday we had our mass, we had our croissant, and our coronation this year was different in that normally we crown the queens, but this year we ended up taking the people who actually helped the queens get there. We have a person in our community, Francisco Gaspar, who is very organized, and he's the person that we turn to help us organize the parades and all the events around that. He was crowned, and then we have a Senhora Inês Sanch, who I think a lot of you know, also who has been making the capes and the dresses for the queens. For both of them have been active for over 40 years. They were crowned instead of the queen. So that was what we did. And then we had a drive-through sopas event. We did well over 1,000 servings, and did it that way. But ultimately, the way that we raised funds with that, it's not as if people, rather than have people like pay a flat fee, we went door to door and we did the pastoreo like we normally do. And the community was very, very generous. So that allowed us to really, save some funds that have allowed us to be very relatively comfortable for now, through the end of the year. Another thing that we're doing is the state of California is looking for voting centers, and our hall makes for a very good voting center, and they look to us, and they're paying us rent. We're going to be open for 11 days of voting, and we'll be, that'll help quite a bit because there's a significant amount of money. On a per day basis, this might not be a lot, but those are days generally we don't rent, and it helps us. It helps us, and it helps the community because it provides a place where people can vote in person or drop off their ballots if they don't feel comfortable putting them in the mail.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea, Paul. Congrats on that as well, because it's also a safe place for the community. Community trusts, Portuguese American communities trust their halls as safe places. And so it's very, very important to have, and actually maybe you just set a trend, Portuguese halls will become places that people can go and vote because they're not usually used, even on normal circumstances, aren't usually used during the day. And that's when voting usually takes place, from 7 in the morning to 8 at night. So, and it's a way to also to get other communities to know about because everybody votes from every ethnic group.
Yeah.
Kudos to that.
One other thing that I wanted to add is, and this is not money making, but a lot of, we have our bar is open every day and people hang out there, and we can't do that now.
Right.
But what we did is we opened up, we gave a couple people keys to the gate, and we have a nice breezeway. And luckily in California, we have nice weather, and they bring their own beverages, usually water. They generally the people like to go to the bar, but they don't drink a lot. They drink, and that's fine. They go to socialize, and they've been socializing out in the breezeway where it's safe, and they've been looking at them. They've been social distancing because most of them are older, and they don't want to get sick either. So they're able to socialize and stay safe, and in the place that they're comfortable in.
Fantastic. Great ideas. And Linu, what has been going on up in the Alvarado area? What have you done? How has it affected? Any things that changed? Obviously, lots changed, but any innovations as well?
Yeah, well, like many before us, we jumped on the, what are we going to do instead of the festa, the traditional way? So there was dialogue back and forth between the Alvarado Board of Directors, and as I said earlier, and Elaine alluded to, we have a pretty good symbiotic relationship between San Pablo and Alvarado. I've done the sopas for San Pablo for, I can't even remember how many years. My uncle started it, and my uncle actually used to cook the sopas at Alvarado, and so I took over for that. So I cook sopas for both halls anyway. And so it became one of those things. So what can we do? And we wanted to provide, feed the masses. That's what we're supposed to do. So we decided to do that jointly, and which I think is another key thing. Our unfortunately, both of our organizations, we don't have a real tight local Portuguese community around us. I mean, everyone that goes to that hall, even in Alvarado, where there are more Portuguese, particularly from the Açores, everybody drives at least 10 minutes to get there. So it's not like it's a community hall anymore. And so it's important for us to leverage that. So we work really closely with San Pablo. As Elaine said, when I cook the sopas for San Pablo, we actually cook them in Alvarado and bring them up and finish them up in San Pablo. And it's okay to have help from your fellow halls. That's one thing that I think we've learned. We've talked to a couple others around us, like and Vallejo and Benicia, to offer our services, because as Elaine also alluded to there, is that we have a brand new hall. We don't have a kitchen that can cook sopas, but we have a brand new hall. And so, we are continuing in SDES. We're going to be having our drive-through crab feed. We're going to see how that goes. Moya gets pretty hot, and crab chipino is a little tougher to do, but it's just like the moy from sopas, actually. And drive-through tri-tip dinners and those types of things. But I think the thing that really helps us is getting two distinct areas to work together and maybe utilize the strengths of one with the strengths of the others. And we're very, as Portuguese, I said this a lot when I was at Luso, we get in our own little bairrismo. And, if you're a Benfiquista, you're a Benfiquista. If you're a Portista, you're a Portista. But it's okay. We're all, in many cases, in the same boat. So if there's something that we can help a fellow Portuguese organization, we want to try and do that. So I think out of this forced hand that we've had, I think we've reached out a little bit to other organizations and halls to see if we can do that, see how we can help. Because the fact is the bills are piling up. Fortunately, we are, in Alvarado, we don't have any debt, but that doesn't last forever. And good years in the past, when you don't have revenue and you have taxes and maintenance and upkeep, a lot of these halls, we were talking about, most of them are almost 100 years old. And there's a lot of maintenance that goes on, a lot more than people realize. $25 annual dues do not pay those bills. And so we have to think of some more creative ways to do that, in particular on the on the fundraising standpoint. And hopefully one thing that I hope out of COVID is that we've had to find other ways to do this. And I think, you know, from our perspective, I think we're going to definitely keep that drive-through option even after we get to go back, because we've encountered non-Portuguese people who now appreciate having, you know, the benefits that we've all known because we grew up with it. But that's, you know, just a couple of the positives that I think came out of it.
I think you were on mute, Denise.
Thank you for saying that. I am on mute. I guess I'm the only one who can listen to myself, which that sometimes can be a good thing. But so Mrs. I was going to Sacramento. So Mrs. Allen, Judy, tell us a little bit what has happened in Sacramento with the pandemic as far as the hall, and how has the hall adjusted, and what have you done? And you're on mute as well, so we need to get you off of mute. There you go. You are. That's okay.
We are lucky that we have a little nest egg that we've been able to keep up with our operation costs. But when it came time for our festa, which would have been in May, we were hoping that this pandemic would have been over with, and we rescheduled it and advertised it to be rescheduled to September 19th, which was just 2 weeks ago. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. We thought about the drive-through, but again, unfortunately, this is another unfortunately, I'd say 90% of our cooks are much older and high risk, in a high risk category. And after much discussion, it was decided that we didn't want to put them at risk. So we did not do a drive-through with sopas. We have done some sales. We've done filhoge, we've done our carne spit meat, and we also did a donation campaign, since we couldn't go to people's houses, via Facebook and mail, and did pretty well there. So other than that, we haven't done anything else.
Okay, and let's go to Ferndale. So what has happened there, Stephanie?
Well, we, like everyone else, we ended up canceling our festa, and we decided not to do any kind of a drive-through. We're so much smaller. As I listen to all of you talk, we only serve 250 to 300 people on the Sunday, on our festa Sunday. And so we have a live auction that is kind of an old-fashioned auction, and we generate enough funds from that auction to support our festa. So we have a little bit of a nest egg. We've been able to pay our operating costs over the months, like your PG&E and all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. We're looking at in December to do a drive-through the Beans and Linguiça Feed fundraiser. And hopefully we'll be able to do that in conjunction with the community, the Ferndale community, and be able to do some pre-sale tickets, which we've never done before. I have no idea how many people would participate in a fundraiser, but we're not doing it so much as being a fundraiser because we're economically okay. We really want to get our people together. We want to bring the Portuguese back into the forefront into our community. So that's it for us. We're going to be okay if this even lasts going into next year, but I really hope it doesn't. The building will, the people that will have formed new patterns and doing other things other than
that's the issue.
The Portuguese community for something, I'm concerned about.
That is a very good point. Patterns that are established. And so let's go to Elaine in San Pablo, please.
Well, obviously we had the same issues. Our first obstacle was getting everyone accustomed to doing Zoom meetings rather than going to the hall. But it's surprising, even people who were not accustomed learned. And so at least We meet on a regular basis. As Lino said, we did the drive-through sopas. This last weekend, for us, we thought it was important for people to still know that we exist, that we are still trying. And so as long as the people know that there's something going on, they'll stick it out. So we did our directors, we have, 5 or 6 who are quite young. Our president is is quite young. And so we also rely on them to take care of all the social media advertising. A page was set up. We did a Bifanish drive-through, and it included soup and arroz doce, spicy fries, and your bifana. And people paid online. We sold masks. One of our directors makes masks, so we have it with the San Pablo logo on it, or the initials on it. We sold quite a few masks online, and the site that was set up allowed for donations to pay their dues, etc. We don't have the expenses that I know other halls have. We do not have property taxes or a PG&E bill or a water bill. So we are in a very different situation. We are small also, but we felt that the most important thing was to keep our membership informed. Eduardo is our secretary. We sent out a flyer, and he does that on a regular basis. People who don't go to Facebook pages will post the flyer on the refrigerator. I even took copies to other people so they could pass out. Word of mouth is very important, but I think keeping it young and bringing in as many resources to let the community know we're trying. And we want you to come back. We want you to come back physically. And until that can happen, we're going to wear our masks. And when you drive through, we're going to stand 6 feet away and say, and how's the family? And people want that contact, even if it's for a few moments in a drive-through.
Indeed. Thank you, Elaine. And let's come back here to Larry. Mark.
Yes. So we are lucky here to have a big Portuguese community and very supportive. Even though we have a Portuguese hall next to us, which is Tipton of Visalia, and we have Hanford not too far away, but Tulare is a very big Portuguese community. One thing that we do, and I don't think a lot of halls have this, but one of our main fundraisers is the Tulare Ag Farm Show. It is 3 days in the middle of February, and there's 6 beer booths. So there's food booths, and there's 6 beer booths. All the food booths are band boosters, just different organizations, nonprofit, just fundraising. And we are lucky to have the 6 beer booths, TDES does, and they've had it since the establishment of the start of the farm show. So we got real lucky to have that this year, the beginning of this year. Our facility, we owe nothing as far as our facility other than of course, your water bill, your electric bill, and your maintenance, your property taxes, and all that. We also have some apartments. I don't know if you've been in Tulare, but we have some apartments. We have 3 units. So that is a small source of income that we do have. So we did get lucky in the beginning of the year. And then our Festo, it's a subcommittee, and they decided to go forward with a virtual Festa. Of course, you can have the celebration, but you could at least honor it, kind of like Artesia did. We had the rosary throughout the whole week. And what we usually do on a Tuesday is a pezin, which we have cattle and we bless them. And then we give out gemelage, about 200 gemelage on the Saturday. And the Festa decided to go forward with that and gave out the shmelos, about 200 shmelos, did like a drive-through. Some people donated at that time, which benefited. So that was another way that we were able to honor the Holy Spirit, and the Festa got to do, I guess, a small version of the Festa. They did say that they'll stay, of course, until next year. Actually, my daughter is small queen. I told her that her dress is probably going to go up to her knees by next year because she's staying for 2 years. So hopefully we could have a Festa by next year. And I know it's in June. I know a lot of us are hoping that we can go forward with this, because no one knew we were going to be in this situation still. And here we are almost in October. So after we had some funds, we actually had some funds to do some improvements in the hall, which kind of created our nest egg. And we decided to hold off on that because we didn't know how long this is going to last, until our treasurer came back to us and said, well, if you guys don't do anything, you guys won't pass March. So we had until March. So we decided to do drive-throughs. We've done one about a month and a half ago. It was very successful. We sold over 600 tickets. A lot of our food and a lot of our other stuff was donated once some people found out that we're doing a drive-through, and we didn't. We, as the hall, TDS, and the Festa decided not to go door to door and ask for donations like we usually do. At the time, if you remember, the dairy industry was struggling at the time, so they decided not to go to the dairies and ask for anything. So at that time, the milk prices were better, and a lot of people donated funds and donated the food. And then we had another one 2 weeks ago. We sold another almost 700 tickets. A lot of the stuff was also donated. So those are big things that we could hang our hat on, and very proud of our community. So that's how our hall's been able to adapt to what's going on. So we did have the farm show, which we got an email 2 weeks ago that we were not going to have a farm show next year. So we know we will not have those funds coming next year, coming February.
That's huge, Mark. Correct, for the hall.
That's humongous. Not only for us. We make as much there as we do for the Festa. So that kind of tells you a little bit of how much we make. But for the Tulare community, that's huge.
Sure.
That's really a big deal.
For the hall, it's also a big loss, right?
Yes. So that's one of 3 ways we make money. So we're not going to have that next year. Thank God we had it this year. The other one is the Festa. I hope to God we have. I pray to the Holy Spirit that we do have a Festa come June 2021. The other one is rentals. So the other one comes with the other. We had to cancel everything this year so far. We had to give back deposits, which, you hold that money. Now you have to pay that back. So we're hoping by January, we're planning on it. But again, we don't know what's going to happen. And we hope that January we can keep those rentals and go forward with that. So again, our hall throughout the whole year with festas and rentals and everything, we only have probably about 4 or 5 Saturdays that are open. This has really been a damper, but we've been blessed with other ways to have funds and find ways to improve our hall, not improve our hall, but to fundraise, and our community really has come together. So we've benefited from that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mark. And Monique, what has been happening? How does the pandemic, of course, affect Modesto, and any interesting things that have been done to kind of keep up the hall?
So we were pretty fortunate that when the pandemic first hit and we had the shutdown, it was after our main fundraisers, which are our 2 crab dinners, and we just had to cancel our pancake breakfast, that's the last event we had before our Festa, and our Festa was supposed to be at the end of May. So at that time we thought, okay, this is probably going to be temporary. The president was really hopeful that by the end of May we would be reopened again. We would be able to have the Festa, but of course we weren't. But we still wanted to do something for our members and for the community, because obviously at that time people were losing their jobs and there was a lot of uncertainty. So we decided to hold a super drive-through, and I think we were one of the first ones to do that. And I was really proud of the committee, because what we decided to do was, instead of making it like, so we sent out letters to everyone with a prayer card and asked for a donation if they could afford it. If not, we sent a ticket for sopes. And so we gave sopes to anyone who came with a ticket. We made sure that anybody we knew that needed would need the food would receive a ticket. And then we also allowed members from the outside community to come and collect soapfish. So we actually had enough. I don't remember how many pans were made, but it was several hundred, or probably almost 1,000. And we had people, a lot of people from the outside come and drive through and get soapfish. And we actually had, like, I think quite a few, just a few left over, and we got rid of them by the next day. So it was pretty amazing. And our donators were very generous. We obviously didn't get as much as we normally get, but we did get quite a bit more than what I expected, considering the circumstances and the fact that a lot of our donators are dairymen as well, and they were having a lot of problems at that time. So we switched to having our board meetings on Zoom. Luckily, our second vice has a Zoom account. And, you know, we kind of just been living off of our savings. We were lucky that as far as our rentals go, we only had one event cancel, and the rest all switched to next year. So we're hoping that we don't have to cancel anymore, or cancel any outright. You know, we're kind of having to readapt because we're so used to just our, you know, main fundraisers that we cannot have. So we're going to try to have a tri-tip drive-through dinner next month in October. And then we're planning to try to do another one, something else in November, just something to kind of keep us afloat. I mean, hopefully by the beginning of next year, we could hope to have another dinner. We've already pretty much decided that crab dinners probably aren't going to happen. It's too risky. So we're just trying to, like, float along and hope we can afford to have the festa. And then hopefully things might be able to normalize by then. So we kept, just like a lot of most other festas, we kept our committee the same. The president took it on for another year, and the board of directors stayed the same as well. And so we're just kind of holding on tight and hope that the money lasts and that we can just make it, you know. But as far as having in-person things, I mean, a lot of our members, I mean, we have members everywhere, but the ones that, like, come to the actual meetings are in the older generation. So we're really hesitant to have anything in person. I know some of our young guys are like, hey, we need to have a meeting so we can get together and have a beer. But we don't want to do that. So we're kind of just hanging out and seeing what we can do, and just, you know, seeing if it lasts much longer, then I guess we're just going to have to get creative and see if we can do something to at least have something to benefit our members.
Thank you, Monique. And Duarte, Newark, what has happened? Anything that has been done out of the ordinary that you had to cancel, of course?
Yeah, well, things changed. For, like, listen, everybody here, everybody changed. We were lucky in Newark, but let me say to you and to all of those that are listeners, the Newark Pavilion, and I'm going to use the Newark Pavilion because if I say PFSA Council 16, everybody's going to go, oh, what is this all? So let's go to Newark Pavilion. We also have the Portuguese band from Newark uses our place too. And we also have a council from Luso using our halls too when they need for meetings or for whatever event they want. Let me mention too, the Holy Ghost Committee. In July, they gave ofertas. Some people say esmolas. I see it, esmolas, in the name of the Festa do Espírito Santo, the Holy Ghost. It is a different thing, but we're not going to go that way. We're going to go with ofertas. And they gave her away in the name of our committee in our hall. But, and we are lucky because the information I have from our chair lady of the business board, we were lucky because most of the events we had, the quinceaneras, the weddings, they all moved to next year. So right there, we don't lost anything. And also a few years back, we were approached, and you all know, over here in the Bay Area, we have the electronic companies like Facebook, Gentech, Google, and we were approached by two of those if we allowed them to use our parking lot during the week, because our parking lot was empty. Most of the events were on the weekend, and was one of the best decisions we made at this council. Because they park the cars there, and then they have the buses coming over to pick them up and go across the bay. So right there, the contract we have with them, it's good until next year. They don't have many people working, but they still have some, so they still paying to use our parking lot. Is a contract, is a contract. Nobody was expecting the pandemic. So that was good for us. Maybe we were lucky as some of the other halls weren't, but it's been good. Next year, everything is on hold for the festa next year. But one thing I noticed, and I've been listening, and I've been talking with a few friends that are involved at these halls, I see it. The Portuguese halls, they gotta reinvent themselves from now on. Because there's no way we can do what he did all these years. It doesn't matter if next year we'll be able to put people or rent the halls for weddings or quinceañeras. It won't be the same anymore. Lino gave a great idea. Even at the days of the events, we have the dinners. Why don't have the drive-through too, or the takeouts? It is a great idea, maybe because I see us as a big hall. We have two big halls, and we are here on the central of the Bay Area, okay? But I can tell you this much. I've been noticed the change in the last 10 years. Some of us probably don't want to talk about it, but we don't have immigrants anymore, okay? So I've been noticed the decline of the attendance at the weekend of the festas. Is not too many people showing anymore. Those they show is our age. The younger ones, they have other things to do. First of all, they were born here. They went to school. They have a different kind of jobs. And we still have a few that like to get involved. But if something shows up, they go on their lives, and I don't blame them. We did what we did to keep these halls going, but has to be a change. To tell you the truth, I'm done. I gave my spot. I did what I did for almost 4 years. If anybody asks me for help, I will show up to help, but be involved. Because when you get involved in places like this, you got to give 100%. You cannot be involved and then something shows up and you leave. It's not the way I am. But I see it, the change. I see less people coming to the festas. I notice the involvement is not as much like it was 40, 50, 60 years ago, because we all know the big immigration coming over to the state was the 59, 60s. On the 80s, a few like me and others, but they don't come over anymore. And even some of those, they come over, they don't want to do what we did. That's the first thing. They come with different ideas, okay? But as Newark, I'm talking about Newark Pavilion, we were lucky. But for now, but if this goes another year, and if you lose those contracts of those events, if you lose the incoming we have from our parking lot, hey, things got to change. Something needs to be done. So I will live up to those. They are the board, on the board. I don't want to be like, oh, come on, Duarte, this is not going to be as bad. Nobody can promise anything as it is now. But I've been paying attention to all these people that are involved in these halls talking, and I see these small halls, maybe they will have more problems because they don't have as a bigger Portuguese community around. On the Central Hall is a different story. But on the end, let me tell you something, Nish. On the end, we come from Azores. Açorianos, we are different. Most of these halls were built by us. Those people, they come 100 and some years ago. Some of them, they don't even knew how to write their name. and they worked hard for us to have and enjoy what we have now. And we are different, and I see it. I see it and I feel it. If anything goes wrong, we all gonna get together and we will make this better.
Indeed, there is, and that's going to be our final question. Actually, that I'll post to everyone is how we look at the halls for in the future. But João, what has happened? Anything that's been done other than some of the cancellations? Obviously, they were canceled. But other than that, what has the hall been doing to keep it alive the last 6 months?
Well, the Portuguese Hall in Santa Clara is next to the hall. There is 2 residences that they collect rent. I don't know how much, I don't know the specifics, but in the last 20 years, they purchased those 2 residences on the back of the hall. And as most of you know, Santa Clara County was one of the first heavy hit counties with the pandemic. So the restrictions for us were a little bit more severe than in another counties. And the president of the hall, Geraldo Costa, he took the opportunity to resurface the parking lot, which was in dire straight necessity, to be fixed. And other than this, they've been trying to communicate with them, at least the members, by letters, to pay their dues, and if they can contribute with something. At least the Sociedade Filarmónica, União Portuguesa de Santa Clara, and the Sociedade do Espírito Santo, they did that. In preserving the identity, celebrating a mass, Saint Anthony did a memorial mass requesting permission from the county and to have it on the parking lot. And of course, they had the limitation of 60 people. That's the limitation that we have now. First was 25, but then we improved and now it's 60 outside. Mm-hmm. We don't have permission inside. So, and in a demonstration of goodwill, the Sociedade Filarmónica, on where was supposed to be the Festa do Espírito Santo, which is in a Trinity Sunday here in Santa Clara, they went to at least play os hinos do Espírito Santo e de América e de Portugal, fazendo a honra ao Espírito Santo em frente da capela do SES. O SES também tem feito, has done a promotion of baking Portuguese sweet bread, and they pre-order. And what we have here in Santa Clara is this: on the Portuguese Mass, the ones that we read the news of the Portuguese community, events and stuff that we do here in Santa Clara, and we always make sure that Portuguese knows what's going on with a specific organization. For example, yesterday we did a drive pre-order food of corned put and chicken to the choice, and we were very well succeeded. It was through the parking lot, passed by the area where we did the barbecue and stuff, and people not even left the car. It was extremely well organized. And SES on this coming Saturday is going to do one with Shishars. And the next Saturday, the Sarat Fatima, they're going to do Super Espírito Santo. And the following Saturday, the SES is going to do another promotion, driving through with Cabri. So we are active. We are flexible, responding to what the health department allows us to do.
Okay.
We are not forcing the issue, but we are complying. And inside of those limitations, we're trying to get some funds because the taxes, only Trump doesn't pay taxes, we have to pay taxes. So, and other issues that we have to pay, electricity and all that, we still have to pay. So that is expensive.
Sure.
Expenses.
Sure.
And we're doing what we can.
Okay.
There is people that are aware of our necessities. Now, like in different areas, I understand the word, but I also understand that 1972, when I arrived over here, I was, a cold 25 years old, full of it. And what I did was, I wanted to get involved. And they said, oh, you are a communist, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. And that's where the Portuguese that were here accepted the new ones that were coming too. So I had to pay my dues, get involved, helping in the kitchen or doing other menial duties till they found that I had other abilities and I was good at. So that's the way it is. In Santa Clara, the president of the Philharmonic, she's a lady under 30 years old. The president of St. Anthony, she's also a young lady under 30. And so we have young ones getting, and also Sarat Fatma, Erika Tost, she's a very young lady. So we have youngs coming in. Now, we have to pass the barrier that the old ones are the ones that know everything. We, the old ones like me, we have to be flexible and assist them with the new ideas because they are the ones who are going to be the future. Sure. If we don't help them and be open for the new ideas that they have, we're gonna lose. We're gonna lose the whole. We're gonna lose everything.
Okay. Thank you, João. And we're going to move to our last question. I had promised you about an hour and a half or just a little over, but we'll do this one as quickly as we can. Before I get to the last question, kind of a question that actually you already know what's coming because I sent you questions before to just as an outline, but they were all excellent points brought up here and kind of the thing that kind of sticks, and those of you following obviously have made some excellent notes to us. Trying to be innovative, whether it be with a parking lot because you have, Google or Facebook or somebody next door, or a bank or whatever, trying to be creative, whether it be with drive-throughs that may continue in the future. Yesterday, when we had with the statewide organizations, everybody was pretty much in agreement that whether the pandemic lasts and these restrictions, whether they last 3 months or 6 months, and everybody's hoping it will be out in 6 to 8 months, but whether it lasts 3 or 6 months, it'll be a year in most of the lives of Portuguese Americans and everyone else, obviously, within organizations. And so someone made actually the comment yesterday that, just like things did not go back to normal after September 11th, things will not go back to normal in America after the pandemic. And so, yeah, the idea is things will not go back also to normal, obviously, in a lot of the halls, the way things were done before. And, you know, it was mentioned, I believe it was somebody that mentioned, I think it was Duarte, about, you know, the valley is a different animal, let's put it that way, but it's not so different. And the reason it's not so different, very quickly, is because a few years ago, I had a gentleman tell me that like 3 or 4 years earlier, he had given 31 cows, you know, to different festas throughout the valley. And he said, and this was about 14, 15 years ago. And just not too long ago, I spoke to his son, and his son said, I'm not giving no 31 cows. And, you know, so, you know, and he, and his son actually, I believe, gave 14. He thought it was too many already. So, you know, the idea that both, you know, a lot of you brought up, that younger generations will think a little bit different. They will. I mean, they may have different, you know, different ways, but they'll think a little bit different. So, the idea that the valley is saved because of the dairy industry, which is not what it once was, also, it will not be the same as well. I think these changes, and even Tisha said that, you know, from her hall, which is right in the smack in the middle of the valley, you know, things are going to change independently if you are in San Diego or in Santa Clara or Newark. And so that is my question to you at the end. Without, you know, in a nutshell, if you can, and knowing that we do not have the all famous crystal ball that will tell us exactly how things will be a year from now, but how do you see post-pandemic, and whether the pandemic lasts? And we know, you know, Mark Noon's just given the report of an event in February, which is very important to the economy of a city and a county. It's the only one time actually the city's coming up with some things because of price gouging, because hotels that are normally $100 charge $300, you know, and so it's an event that's been canceled. So if you have an event that is canceled in February, you know, important to the livelihood of an industry, as the agriculture industry for the valley, a lot of things are still going to be put off, and we see that whether it come February or March. And there's even a question whether the festas will be able to have a normal, quote unquote, festa next year. It depends who you talk to, but there's that possibility. My question to you is, post-pandemic, and kind of, you know, sort of like September 11th changed a lot of things in our country. We don't fly the same way we flew before September 11th, and a lot of other security issues. Post-pandemic, whether it lasts 6 months or a year, how do you see your community and your hall in 5 to 10 years? And I know, Duarte, you said you're going to leave, but you're not going to leave. We know that. But even if you do leave, how do you look at the halls, and with your situation, and knowing that something else can come up? It may not be a pandemic, maybe something else. How do you look at the halls 5 and 10 years from now, with the community that we have and the community that will be different? The community is much different today than when I began in Portuguese radio 40 years ago. So it is much, much different. And so that's my one question. How do you see that? Basically, how do you see your community and your hall 5 to 10 years from now and post-pandemic? I'll start with Lino. Because he always has the answer on the tip of his tongue, so that's why I start with him.
Yeah, well, I definitely think it's going to be different. I think life for all of us is going to be different. We'll eventually go back. We'll have festas, but I think we will adapt. The fact that we used to have crab feeds sitting 500 people at once, everybody throwing all their stuff in a bucket in the middle. I think we'll do it, but it's going to be on a smaller scale. So again, you know, I said we're going to have to adapt. I think Duarte touched on something that is kind of the pink, you know, the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about, that I brought up in a number of instances, not only with Alvarado, but with San Pablo. And we had a unique situation there because Elaine touched on it. We don't have any expenses. San Pablo sold their hall in the 70s to the city of San Pablo, and we have the luxury of having a permanent facility that we will have. It only costs us about $3,000 to do a festa, and we serve 300-400 people. So the question is we have to think of other ways. All of these halls are worth a lot of money in real estate dollars. The question is, who are those dominant ethnic organizations that are around now. In Alvarado, Alvarado, for those of you who don't know, Union City and Fremont are two cities right next to each other. Huge Afghan population, huge Indian population, huge Hispanic population. They're the ones that are paying our bills through all the rentals. And so the question is how do we make ourselves viable, not only just 5 years and 10 years down, but 30 years down the line? If we're sitting on $3.5 million worth of real estate, perhaps we can look at the option of selling it and putting terms into those sales agreements where we, like we do in San Pablo actually, where we get 12 days a year. We use the hall free, it doesn't cost us anything. And so creative ways of thinking how we can adapt to still preserve our traditions, still hold a festa. But I'm sorry, if you sell a hall for $3 million and you put that in the bank in a conservative 5%, type of money that you need to have in fraternal and nonprofit organizations, that will last a long time. So I think we're going to have to look at questions like that a little bit more. I think maybe the serving soapage isn't in the hall, maybe it's outside in tanks. Use all these big parking lots we have so that we can still feed them. But we're going to have to actively engage that. I think it was touched on in the discussion yesterday. What's going to happen? I think people are boiling to go to some of these things. And I think it's going to be a boom next year because I think people are going to be so hungry, literally, for soapage and other things, but also figuratively that I think that there's going to be a grasp. So the question is how do we take advantage of that and engage those people back into maybe reinvigorating it with, like we always talk about, the younger people. But we have to recognize that younger people are different. We all have these things in our hands constantly. We live on this, even though our hours are supposed to be 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, it's literally almost 24 hours. So we have to recognize those things.
Sure. Mark.
Lino, just to piggyback a little bit on the property, I mean, if people could buy real estate property now, I mean, why not, right? Especially if they're well established. And let's say 20, 30, 40 years, if there's a hall that is struggling, maybe like some are now, that is the route to go. You sell, you make that money, now you have some funds to survive. And I like that idea. I've talked to some people about that, and that's a great idea. Now, as far as post-pandemic, I think I'm lucky to be in a big community, and I think that our people are ready for a festa. I totally believe that. Now, one thing I've done, and I do like what Sr. João Arruda said and started by Sr. Duarte, is how do you get the younger generation? Me as president, one thing I've done, I've tried to bring younger people, even women. I know we've talked about that earlier. Sometimes women weren't allowed to be a board of director on a hall. I don't know how your halls are, but sometimes we've had some, but I've tried to do that. They're younger than us, and they have social media at their fingertips, and they have all their friends. They got everybody. They could put out a word out quickly. So if you want to have a dinner or have something, that's the way to do it. And we have to get these younger people. But os mais antigos, I don't have a problem with them. I actually enjoy them because that's where we're going to learn. Myself, I will learn from os mais antigos and pass that down. That's how it has to happen. And we have to be in the os mais antigos have to be. Sr. João Arruda did say it. They have to teach the younger ones and to adapt and learn, and then they would move out of the way slowly because some of the older ones don't want to do that. And I mean, we've talked about it. Some do, and that's the way we have to adapt to go forward with this. That's the only way. But I think festas, especially in my community, I'm here on behalf of TDS. I think we're ready for festa. I think we'll open it up. There will be some, especially the older ones. Will we see masks at a festa probably next year? Probably. And I have a feeling if someone's sick, they will not come, especially the older ones. I think we're still going to be on that, maybe for 2 or 3 years to come. But 5 or 6, we will see, like Lino said, maybe soapage will no longer be inside. Maybe we'll have less people. You can't pack in a hall like you used to before. So a lot of different things that we're going to adapt to, but I have a feeling, I'm not saying we're going back to normal. but I hope that we do have a festa next year. So that's just me and Tulare, and post-pandemic, I hope that we go back to normal, but if we go back to normal, semi back to normal with some rules and regs in there, I guess that's okay too. So that's
thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Allen, Judy, Sacramento, how do you see the community and how do you see your hall, especially 5-10 years from now?
Well, I'm hoping it'll still be going. What we've been trying to do the past few years is bring in young people, kind of, Mark touched on this. I'm trying to bring in young people on our board. We do have quite a few women on our board, but the young people, we just in the past few years have brought in some young people who have a lot of innovative ideas. And sometimes the older ones do roll their eyes or say, oh no, you can't do that. We've never done that. But in the end, they kind of, you know, they kind of give in. We need to embrace them, at kind of what Mark said also. Like an example is working in the kitchen. The older ones, they are the experts. We need them to teach us, but we need them to do it. We need the youth to be hands-on, and you stand behind them and supervise. We're trying to do that too. It's not going to happen overnight, but that's the key, I think. You know, with immigration all over and youth we don't have the Portuguese youth coming. So we also need to find things to bring them to our events, to participate, bands that they like to dance to, just to get them back in with their children so that this generation thing just keeps going. I hope that we are still there, Sacramento, in 10 to 15 years. My daughter's on the board now, so I know she will be there for a while. And it's people that age in their 30s that we need to help us move on. And as far as the pandemic, it's like Lino said, I think things are going to change. We may have to serve outside, and maybe that'll work. And you have 3 or 4 servings instead of only 1 outside. So things are going to change, but I think what's important to keep the halls going, to me, it's to bring in the younger people. We need them to because we're not going to be here forever.
Yeah, unfortunately, we'd like to be here forever, but it doesn't happen. And that is actually a debate in all itself that we'd like to continue and have some of you back in the near future. Would be, you know, how do we get young people involved? And actually, we need to ask them as well. So, Stephanie, how do you see Ferndale Portuguese Hall, the Portuguese Association, 5-10 years from now, in your perspective?
Well, we've been really working probably the last 5 years on trying to get younger people taking over roles for the festa that that are needed to happen, like the auction committee. We have a younger person now in charge of that. We've been working on that. I think we need to probably put a little bit more effort once we are able to get back. I think people have missed it. I think people miss the Portuguese gatherings. And so I think if we market what we're going to be doing a little bit more, and I think bringing the young people alongside of us, like Mrs. Diaz was saying, essentially is looking for younger people and having them learn from us is the key.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. Any other, how do you see, but the community is a smaller community. Do you think there's enough enough gusto to keep it going?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. I do. I think if we, our board will probably be changing. We serve a long time. Like I've been on this board probably 20 years. I was the first woman on the board. And now we have 3 women and 2 men. There's only 5 of us. Mm-hmm. And we're going to be having some changes over the next few years. And I think that's going to be key as to who those people are, that with the same commitment to try and engage the younger people. So that's going to be our challenge.
Indeed. Okay. So Monique, how do you see Modesto 5-10 years from now, the Modesto Portuguese Pentecostal Association? And one of the things that fascinates me also, and I think that Carol Gregory is still one of the participants, one of the attendees, I should say. And she, as I mentioned, Carol has this wonderful as wonderful as a doctoral thesis can be, because there are a lot of work, and Monique can tell you about that. But anyway, the mapping of the Portuguese halls in California that she did 15 years ago is absolutely amazing. And the fascinating thing is the names, the Pentecostal, Selma has Azorian in there, where some others don't. And so the names that have been put forth by these pioneers, 90, 100 years ago are really fascinating. So tell us about your perspective 5-10 years from now, Monique, of the Portuguese Pentecostal of Modesto.
I think we're really at a crossroads here, and something that we've been fighting for a while. We have this situation, as everybody said, that that we have the older generation who's dying off, who's becoming older. They're tired. They want to enjoy themselves and not have to be working at the hall serving soulbush. And we have, like my generation is coming in now, the younger generation, but kind of what the issue I see it is that, the older generation had the purpose of the religion, right? You don't offend the Holy Spirit. You don't say no to the Holy Spirit. We give to the Holy Spirit, as you were mentioning before, about the cows, we give to the Holy Spirit regardless of whether or not we could really afford it, because they have that religious belief. They might have a promesa or something like that. Now, I think, my generation, as we're kind of continuing on what our parents and grandparents started, because it's important to us. A lot of us have emotional, sentimental, religious ties to the festa and keeping all of this going. And it's important to us because of that, but not so much because of like what our grandparents saw. And so when it comes to like our children's generation, what is going to be their purpose of keeping the festa going? They're not going to have that same ties to it that we do. Like I have these great memories of, the benches that we used to have in the Modesto Hall, laying on the hall, waiting for my parents to, let's go home, it's midnight and you guys are still talking and dancing and laughing. It's like, what is going to be their purpose? They're not going to have that same, emotional pull that we have. And so what's going to make them keep this going? They're not going to want to keep it for the same reasons. So we have to give them a reason to want to keep this going. We have to give them a reason to, want to stay and kind of make these bonds and connections that I don't think that they have, like what we had. The growing up with, we didn't really have much of a choice. A lot of us, we had to go to the festa. We could only hang out with our Portuguese friends. And so we still have, memories of that, but our kids don't have that. So if we don't come up with something like that, we're going to end up like the Italians and other ethnic groups that have have these issues. I also see us as being more business oriented. We see a lot of our boards who are kind of becoming more like, talking about investments and real estate and things like that. Whereas, and I do taxes for some of the festas. So we see how some of them used to treat it like a social club, not keeping up with IRS regulations and things like that, not bothering to make motions. So I think that's going to be changing. And I think really, as far as like, we just have to get into the 21st century. And I think the pandemic, and for some ways, is going to change that, because, here in the Valley, you go on the route, right? You go to everybody's house, you go to all the dairies, you spend weeks, and people just don't really have time for that anymore. Like most people are 8 to 5. And if you work all week and run around with your kids all week, the last thing you want to do on a Saturday is run around to all the dairies. Well, some people like it because then they can drink, but it's like, so now we got to look more towards getting like Facebook donations, PayPal, credit card, doing kind of modernize and kind of meet people where they're at, instead of trying to like force an old style of doing things into, the future, even though, yes, we want to keep our heritage. We don't want to change. And believe me, I'm one of those people in Modesto. It's like, no, don't change. That's how we've always done things. But at the same time, we have to like look at ourselves and figure out what can we reinvent in order to stay fresh and modern, and find out, what is it going to take for us to get the younger generation involved so that they're invested in it and they're not just doing it because we're forcing them to.
Okay. Duarte,
Okay.
how do you see Newark Pavilion 5-10 years from now?
This will be my last intervention on this meeting, no?
Yes. Well, yeah.
This
Well,
is
at the end, everybody can say a couple words, obviously.
Okay. 10 years from now, when João from Santa Clara said the presidents of the organizations they have in Santa Clara, they are young and they are between the 30s. I also can say the Newark Pavilion has been lucky because at least pretty much 10 years or so, the presidents of the Holy Ghost been between the 30s, 40 years old. So that's great. Some of them, they serve and stay. Some of them, they serve and leave. And probably they have to think, and maybe those they already left, 5-10 years from now, they have to come back to keep the hall or the Newark Pavilion going. I'm not saying they're not capable to do it. I know, I saw them working. I know they can. But sometimes they come with the excuse, oh, I'm too busy. I have no time. And then ask the question, 40 years ago, some of us, we had kids. We had 2 jobs. We played soccer. We played on a band, and we still had time to do Danças de Carnaval. How we did it? That's my question. How we did it? And on these days, they come with the excuse, oh, I'm too busy. I can't. I have a family. No, they have to come. That's what I ask them is from 5-10 years from now, 15, 20, enjoy, come in, do whatever you want to do, because nobody can say Eduardo said this and that. No, I'm always supporting them. I like I said, and you said, Nish, oh no, you're not gonna leave. Nish, it's time for my grandkids. If they ask me to help, I will go, because I don't want to see that place closing down. That place, that's where my daughters learn how to walk. Not just mine and a lot of friends. I still remember the first time I got here 40 years ago. I went to Alvarado, and that's when I met all the Amarals. The Amarals are the heart and soul of the Alvarado. And look, Lynn's still there. He still works, he still helps. And that's what we need, not just at the Newark Pavilion, but pretty much in all these halls. Because we're getting old, we're getting time for us, we need time. I don't want to be there. But we need to keep what those they worked so hard, they need so hard for us to have. E deixa-me dizer umas palavrinhas em português, se me des autorização, porque eu sei que somos Luz American, I know, mas eu sei também que tem pessoas que talvez, que os avós, os pais dessas pessoas trabalharam incansavelmente para que nós hoje podemos usufruir desses salões do norte ao sul da Califórnia, do norte ao sul, onde nós podemos apreciar, e mesmo nestas alturas que as festas estão ficando com cada vez menos gente, mas nada nos tira o valor do Espírito Santo, nada nos tira as nossas meninas vestidas de rainhas. Este é o nosso encanto, esta é a nossa cultura, e é isto que eu peço, é isto que eu gostava, que eu não sei se vou viver mais 20 anos, mas é isso que eu gostava, que os meus netos um dia pudessem ir no Newark Pavilion e dizer, o meu avô e a minha avó já foram presidentes desta festa. Mesmo que seja naquele inglês, mavavá, mavavô, but doesn't matter. They will go there. They will see our pictures, not just us, but from north to south of this state. We have to be proud to be Portuguese. We have to be proud of those that worked so hard. And like you mentioned, that gentleman, that dairy in the valley, 30 cows, 31 years back. Now we gave 14. But let me tell you one thing. If wasn't those dairies at the valley, even us here in the Bay Area, our halls will have a big, big problem to put festas going. So for them, a big thank you. E que o Espírito Santo os proteja para o resto da vida e que os ajude sempre a ter muita saúde. E quanto a ti, vou-te pedir uma coisa. Nunca deixes de escrever as tuas crónicas para a Tribuna Portuguesa, porque eu gosto muito de as ler, ok? Yeah, I guess you mute yourself. I cannot hear you.
I also forget to mute myself. Thank you, Dwight. Yeah, 20 years for sure you'll live. Don't ask for 40 or 50. I don't think you can go there,
That's
you and
for
I.
sure.
But Elaine, some thoughts from San Pablo. How do you see with that uniqueness of San Pablo, which is, I think, as Mark mentioned, and maybe the future for a lot of other halls. How do you see your organization 5-10 years from now?
I actually don't see too much of a change. I've listened to everyone, and our organizations, the one thing that we're talking that seems to be, these organizations have already lasted 100 and some odd years. We weren't even here. I am.
Well, I think Eduardo Eusebio was, but no one else was here, right?
No. But all I'm saying is that there have always been, over the course of years, difficult times. More recently, I know halls that have had problems with the health department. They have to take out their barbecues. They have to rearrange their kitchens. They have to do, everybody's nodding. We didn't have that problem because we didn't build our kitchen. There have been churches who wouldn't allow the festa to take place in the church anymore. So people adapted. Saying that, is it going to be the festa for San Pablo of 1881? No. Lino cooks our sopas. I don't think he's cooking them in the same style that was done originally. But I also know that the Portuguese people, and I am a product of a Picoense mom and a father from the continent. So I am and born here. So I cover 3 spots. And one of the things is that I hear people saying, you taught your children, they went there. Why has he been involved all these years? Because his family was. Why am I involved? Because my family was. And you pass that on. You also allow the chance for those people to shine. You want the younger generation there? All right. Let them do an event and you support them. They go to Portugal and they go to certain festas and there's certain things they like. Put on that festa. Put on that style. It's not the Festa do Espírito Santo, but let them create and be there for them. I don't think it's that tough. Allow people to have a chance. And if you don't have young people involved, ask them. But don't ask them to come and take the garbage out all the time. Ask them to do something that they will feel proud of afterwards and feel good about, and then I think they'll be there more times. I don't think sometimes I know of a local organization that when younger people went and they are very behind, it was só querem o dinheiro, querem gastar o dinheiro que nós trabalhamos. And it's true. Years ago, to fix a hall, you had people who were carpenters and electricians and could do all that work. So now the younger generation is high tech. They're working at Google. They're working at Facebook. They are lawyers. They are doctors. But that doesn't mean that we can't use them as resources. And let them feel a part.
Let them feel that they are, yeah, indeed. So if you're going to that's a very good point. And I think it's been touched also. Thank you for reiterating that, Elaine. Let young people feel that they're a part of the festa, not just take out the garbage. I'm going to remember that for a long time. That's great.
That's good.
And Ricardo, San Diego, how do you see the hall 5-10 years from now, the community itself? How do you see the Portuguese hall 5-10 years from now? I'm sure you'll probably have a supermarket instead of just a little market.
Well, we are actually looking at moving the market to a bigger section of the hall. That is true. But a lot of people mention it, and we were already at a crossroads. You know, people talked about the Central Valley and the farming. For us down here, it was fishing.
Right.
San Diego was the tuna capital of the world. We had hundreds of boats here. Now they've all been pushed to American Samoa. I'm one of the last boat owners down here. There's 4 of us. There used to be hundreds. So we've already been going through a transition down here. Again, with the influx of immigrants too. You know, after the volcano in Fayal, that was the last big surge, at least for us here. And so we've been adapting. We're lucky though, we do have a lot of young people on the board, which is great. So we have that buy-in. We're running into the problem, I think, and I think it's just growing pains, but of people that have done it for so long that they don't want to let go. They don't want to take someone under the wing and teach them on how to, you know, how they do what they do, whether it be, I don't know, any number of things. I don't want to say anything too specific, but you guys understand what I'm saying. So we've got a younger board. We're trying to reach out to the younger people as well with new events. We're using the parking lot. So we're thinking of a cornhole event. I didn't even know they do these tournaments, but some of the younger members have reached out and said that, hey, we could make some money. We have a big parking lot. We can set this up. So we're going to try one of those. And we're also looking at maybe showing movies in the parking lot, like drive-in style, either blocking off sections for families so you can stay with your family, but you're distanced from the next group. So that's another thing we're looking into to trying. And so we got a lot of things that we're trying, but you know what? I like to plan for the worst and hope for the best. So what we're doing also is we're getting our hall ready for when we can use it again. So we've repainted the exterior has a brand new color, new landscaping. We pulled up all the hardwood floors inside because they were put in 1948, and you can only sand floors so many times before they start cracking. And we were getting cracked, so we couldn't refinish the floors anymore. So we ripped them all up, we put in new floors, it looks great. But we're doing a lot of catch up on maintenance too. We had 4 big air conditioning units, we were down to 1. So of course we're gonna replace 2 of them so we have a little bit of leeway again. So we're trying to get a hall back to a marketing point where when it opens, it's got nice curb appeal, it's looking good, and we're ready to rent. Now on that note, we've been lucky that we've only had 1 cancellation, and that was a wedding. Everyone else has simply deferred their bookings for this year to next year. So we're looking really, and we're getting people calling for next year. So we're taking those deposits too, because like it or not, we live in a business age now. But one thing I'm looking down the road at is, you know, for all these events, we're looking at different stages, a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. A plan A is everything's back to normal, we're good to go. Plan C is we're on lockdown, and basically it's what we did this year, the drive-through soap push, that kind of stuff. And the B is a mixture of the two. So a lot of people have mentioned that. Maybe we do crab feast, but maybe we do it outside. Maybe we do it multiple seatings instead of 1. You do families together as opposed to, you know, 1 person then 6 feet. So you can all sit together. So those are some of the things we're looking at near term. Long term, a lot of people talked about the real estate value and stuff like that. And I don't know if any of you have been to the San Diego or the San Diego Portuguese Hall, but it is in a prime location. But we don't want to get rid of it. We want to do the development ourselves. And in 20 years, what I'd like to see is a 2nd floor on that hall with offices. Those will have views of the bay, and we could rent those for a premium. We have a couple of buildings across the street, small apartments we rent out now, and I think with a 2nd floor, we would do very well. Some people don't like that idea, but it's change. Change is coming. I think that would put us in really good financial footing for the future. But that's what I'm looking at. We're planning for the worst, hoping for the best. But long term, our Paul's going to be ready for business when we can open, whenever that is. And in the future, I'd like to see a 2nd floor put on so we can rent that and have another stream of income, because our market now has been a good stream now that the pandemic has started. And bingo was a solid stream before. But of course, now we can't do that. So when we get back to normal footing, we should have 2 good streams. Plus our fest always is a lot of fun and raises a decent amount of money. And so between those 3 and a good 2nd story, of course, like everything, I don't know how we'd pay for it, but we figure that out later. But that's what I see. We're reaching out to the young crowd. We got them on the board. We've got some going between pains between the old generation and the new, but we'll work through that. But like I said, I'm looking forward to it very, very positively. But I'm a realist too. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of bumps along the way, but hey, that's what life is. It's not a smooth road.
That's right. That's right. Indeed. Thank you, Ricardo. And let's see, I think we lost, where's Paul? Paul, there's Paul right there. Paul, are you back on? If not, we'll go to Paul. There you are. Paul Barcelos, how do you see our TGDS 5-10 years from now? You're on mute, as I do the same thing. So we'll have to unmute you, Paul. There you go. So how do you see the whole 5-10? It's okay. 5-10 years from now, how do you see our TGDS?
So 5-10 years from now, I think I see it being probably the events have to change. They have to change. I don't know what that looks like. I think telling people what it looks like is the problem sometimes. We have to let people kind of figure that out on their own, right? We have to give people the leeway to do things. Unfortunately, I think one of the things that I've noticed, and I think, running it this year, I mean, I've been president before. I was president 10 years ago, and I've served before, and I've been very involved for years, right? In a lot of different ways. And one of them was really kind of thinking through like how we change our operating so that we can have people who serve and we have different ideas. One of the strengths in our community has been that we do change out every year, and we do have different boards of directors, and they do have different ideas, and it stays fresh. However, recently I think that we've got these groups of people that feel like, I think we've gotten so big that there's a lot more financial risk than there used to be. And a lot of times there's that lack of trust of handing it off to people who are inexperienced. They have to serve a couple times. And unfortunately, and I know, I understand, like my parents were here and they worked and they did a lot of stuff, and they said, oh, I don't have time. I mean, they didn't say I don't have time. They did it. And, I don't have time and I'm doing it. But I understand also that it can be a little bit harrowing. And I don't know even if it's only time. It's just like you're getting into a really the halls have gotten much more complicated to run. There's a lot more complexity for people. There's, we didn't rent every weekend. We just didn't have the complexity that we do now. And we just have to let people kind of get in there and run it. And then we have to also simplify, because I think one of the problems that we have right now is, and I'm noticing, the more I notice it, the more I notice it, it's the older people want you to do the stuff for them that they always did, but they don't have the time to do it. The younger people have all these great ideas and all these new things get added on. And the problem is we're not kind of letting some things go to take on other things. We're kind of putting everything together. We kind of have these festas that are kind of like a lot of work, and the community is getting smaller unless people are showing up. Parents, a lot of our parents unfortunately have passed away or are getting too old to go on a regular basis. And the ones that are left want what they used to have. The younger people want different things, and they have very diverse views, because even I think my parents' generation was much more culturally monolithic than my generation is, right? We've got people who are professionals who do professional jobs. We have people who still are laborers and do labor jobs. We have people that love to camp on weekends and they go away on weekends. We have people that like to have these fine dinners, and so we've got all these different things, and we try to do all of them all the time. And so when I kind of look at like the events from 20, 30 years ago, I feel like that we do a lot of the same stuff that we did 20, 30 years ago, and we've added so many things on. So it's actually a lot more time consuming and tiring to serve than it used to be. And I think we've got to figure out how to kind of move forward without really kind of betraying what our parents did, but we've got to let some things go. And because the most important, I think the biggest risk we have in our community is that people don't want to serve, and you get the same people serving over and over again. And then it just becomes a very different organization than it's become. And maybe it will have to, and maybe that's part of the fact that we've been around 100 years. In 1974, I think we call it the 25 here in Artesia, where it was our version of it. We were basically, you ran one festa, you had a couple festas, and you had a parade, and that was it. And then the new wave of immigrants came in and they turned it into, like what I said, everything kind of falls under one roof. And it worked for a long time. But now I think it's just, we've got to reinvent ourselves again. And maybe it's simplifying things quite a bit versus where they were, and really kind of focusing on what matters, and not really burdening it, because if you don't have these fresh ideas and these new people coming in, it's going to be the same people, and the same people are going to get tired of it, or it's just going to become one or two things a year, and we kind of lose what we've built over the last few years, and maybe we'll know if that's fine or not, but we've got to at least give a chance for it to go somewhere else on its own, organically.
Indeed. Thank you, Paul. And João, how do you see Santa Clara 5-10 years from now?
Well, one thing that I see is more young people will use technology. We are on the heart of and center of technology. We should take advantage of it. When I came over here, the places of technology such as Intel, Texas Instrument, and National Semiconductor, Memorex, they were all fields of potatoes and onions and so forth. And most of the Portuguese have jobs on those fields and canneries, and they adapted to other jobs to survive. We will survive. And this young generation, they will use technology. They probably didn't have a blind faith in religion like my generation does, but they will do enough to maintain our religious and cultural traditions. And definitely they will do enough for our halls to survive financially, and with promotions to their style, but other people from their age will show up.
Okay, so get the young people involved with technology. Tisha, you're going to do the honors of closing. Of closing and the argument. Let's say, what is your closing argument as far as 5-10 years from now? How do you see Selma? And all of these halls are different because they're in different communities and different size communities.
Very different. I mean, even before the pandemic and the virus and the issues that we faced just this year, from being younger and my grandmother being involved with the hall, that's been kind of a common thread. We're all part of these halls because someone in our family was part of the halls. Currently, our hall is basically two families. Our board is mostly women. There's, I think, 9 women and 2 men. So maybe we've made some strides in that genre, that field, but we've struggled to where we can't always fill our positions. And when my grandmother was here and active, every year was a fight for the board. Who's going to get on this year? And now you're begging people in our situation to come onto the board. Much different dynamic. We also got too complacent with the halls renting fine. We don't need to do our fundraisers anymore. As a kid, you'd had wine tastings, you had New Year's Eve parties, you had every other month there was some kind of event I was being dragged to because I had to go and do my part and work, and that's why I'm here today. But you don't see that in our community with the younger kids. I think Monique mentioned it yesterday in the panel. They have other things, they can be part of soccer and get a trophy at the end of the year, or be part of band and get a medal at the end of the year. You're part of a hall and it just takes your money and it takes your time. So there's not much of an advantage to entice the younger generation here. So it does come with giving them a sense of ownership and a sense of pride, and that sense of, hey, okay, I came down here, I worked for a weekend and I fed 1,000 people, or instilling the traditions of St. Isabel and saying, this is an 800, 900-year-old tradition with St. Isabel. Let's continue it on, and instilling those values from the religious aspect into the American, okay, time is money. So I was raised, you don't find time, you have to make time. Because if I waited for everything to just happen, you know, my work wouldn't get done, and then I'd be without a paycheck. And so you have to make things, you have to find the time, you have to make the time to make things happen. And it's really hard here to get the younger generation because of that, because we don't offer a whole lot. So we have to find here at this hall, we probably have to go back to not relying on the rentals, to doing more fundraisers, building up that bank account again. So in case another pandemic happens, we have to open our minds to be more open to new ideas and give them a try. And so maybe one year they make a couple of $100, but maybe the next year they'll grow and they'll grow and they'll grow. And so it's not to cut them off so quick, and let them have their voice and back up the new ideas and the younger generation. And hopefully they will stick around and we can see a future. I also see the festa itself has gone down throughout the years. We have 3 festas in our area the same Trinity Sunday. 2 of us are very small and we're much more closer to each other. So I've already pitched the idea very unpopularly, but that, you know, maybe at some point we need to reach out to them and say, hey, why don't we help each other? Maybe one year the festa's at our hall, the next year the festa's at your hall. And that way we all keep a part of our traditions, our families being queens, etc. But it's going to take coming together and working with others, because we're not going to be able to do it on our own.
Indeed. So lots of different ideas. I wanted to see if we had any questions, but most of the comments were just comments on what people made. There was one comment that I'd like to share with you, which says that a very interesting discussion that raised as many questions as it provided answers. I believe that this needs to be an ongoing dialogue amongst the hall's board of directors for the exchange of ideas, struggles, challenges, to preserve one of our most visible Portuguese heritage icons in California. I agree with you. I agree. One of our, let's just end that, yeah. And then I says something about I agree with it. The young people themselves have to be, of course, more involved. So thank you all. It's been a tremendous learning experience for me, as I knew it would be. I enjoyed meeting some of you for the first time, some of you that I've known for a while off and on. It was a pleasure. Thank you for your service to the Portuguese American community, because if there's something that unifies, especially people from the Azores, but you know, also people from mainland Portugal that have learned the Azorian way here in California, is the Holy Spirit. There's nothing that unifies people in the Azores. People from São Miguel don't like people from Terceira. People from Terceira don't like people from São Jorge. And people from São Jorge don't like people from Pico. And people from Pico definitely do not like people from Fayal. And so, you know, it's because it's a little island next to Pico, as people from people say. And so, and it's just, when I say people don't like it, I'm saying it obviously in a very, you know, tongue-in-cheek way. But there's a lot of things that divide Azorians because of the islands that we are, and some of the historical data that we've lived with. However, one thing that always unifies the Azorians and unifies people also from mainland Portugal that have come here and that have made their livelihood here is the Espírito Santo Festas. There's something about Espírito Santo that unifies the spirit of the Azores and brings in people from mainland Portugal and brings in people also from the islands of Madeira. It's stronger than, you know, all the divisions that there may be that sometimes are trivial, you know, in the islands and the Benfica Sporting, etc., as Lino said. So kudos to all of you for all your work. I'm reminded that, you know, many of you were talking about your hall has been in existence for 90 years or 116 years or 105 years or 120 years. They also went through a pandemic in 1918. So they survived. Much different times, but they went through it. And so I think the halls will survive this as well, and obviously they will with people like yourselves. So thank you for your service to the community. Thank you to your service to the Espírito Santo, which is something that even people who don't believe. And so it's very, very strong. Thank for this bond. And I think that you've made some very good points, as Duarte Silva, who was the one that made that comment, said. Indeed, the conversation needs to go on in a different manner, obviously, but it does need to continue. So I thank you for your time. I know I took you a little over 2 hours of your time, May the Holy Ghost bless you with the time. I can't give you
You
any of
too,
this
you
time.
too.
I can't give you this time back, but maybe you can get it from a higher power than myself. And so hopefully you'll continue the good work. You'll continue the good fight to keep the Portuguese traditions alive. There's many things that are changing, and the Valley's changing a lot. Just we have kind of a dual problem that some of you don't have in the Bay Area or in the Southern California or in San Diego, is that we have a lot of our kids, unfortunately or fortunately, it depends how you look at it, leave for college, and a lot of them don't come back. That's a new phenomenon that did not happen with my generation. We were a lot of my generation didn't go to college, or if we went, we would just go local. A lot of our young people in the Valley are going, past the local community college or even the local university. So we have that issue. But I think it's an issue that you have with all the communities. I think that probably San Diego has that issue as well as Artesia, where kids go away or out of state, for college and they don't come back, or they marry into another ethnic group and they get away from the community. Monique mentioned the Italian community. It's going to happen with us. It happened with the Polish. I mean, the Polish, who would think, there was the number 2 language in some areas, and today no one speaks Polish. So the metamorphosis is kind of the American way, although things are different than they were 100 years ago. But I think with your fortitude, with your vision, with your embracing of the young people, and I hope there are young people here that we're following. I know a few of them, my students, I made them follow. But the young people, because everyone I've heard here wants young people, and they want them to be part of the decision process, not just that wonderful line that Elaine used, taking out the trash. And so I think that there's lots of bridges that were built here. I thank you. I thank those of you who are listening to us on the webinar, all the Luso American Education Foundation directors, and obviously thank those who were listening and following us on the different social media platforms. We had comments from Brazil. We had comments from Canada, both coasts, from Toronto and from British Columbia. We had comments from Hawaii. We had comments from mainland Portugal. A good friend that represents FLAD, Miguel Vaz, was up at 4 o'clock in the morning. That's dedication. So thank you all. With one comment also from the Azores, and I think it was from the island of San Miguel. So kudos to San Miguel. The other ones were partying probably too hard, and they're sleeping now. So again, we thank you all very much. I appreciate it. I appreciate all you do. I know the community feels as well. So I don't have, as we say in Portuguese, a procuração for the community, but on behalf of the community, thank you so much. And the last word will come from Eduardo Eusebio.
Well, thank you, Denise. Thank you, all the panelists. We've been doing this conference for almost half a century, and it's the first time that we had on the Portuguese halls. It was, to me, very interesting, and I learned a lot, really. Even a new word, antigos instead of velhos. Thank you, Mark. I like that word. Which was mais antigo.
E tu és antiquíssimo.
Exactly. So I do thank you, and it is late already, over 2 hours, but I think it was well spent. In a note that I made, sent to everybody, I'm the optimist. I'm the optimist that the halls will continue. I remember in the 60s and the 70s when some were almost condemned, and they're now back on and vibrant. So on that note, let's go forward. And have a good evening, a good night, and see you at another event. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night. Good night.
Oi.
Good night, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Boa noite.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you. Boa
Night.